Welcome to Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show, the show where we feature tech companies operating across Asia, talking about their businesses and solutions and how they make a difference to their customers. Today, our conversation is with Jonathon Dixon. He's the Vice President and General Manager Asia Pacific, which includes Japan and Greater China at Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a web performance and security company that provides online services to protect and accelerate websites online. Jonathon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian. Great to be with you today. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Now, Jonathon, before we start, give us an overview of Cloudflare and its history.
Sure. So Cloudflare, we launched in 2010, and the company's grown significantly. And as you said, we have a mission to help build a better internet. So we leverage our global network, which now spans 250 cities across 100 countries. And as you correctly said, we provide service to improve security, performance, and reliability of north of 25 million internet properties. So people have secure, fast, reliable access to the internet. We've interconnected over 10,000 networks globally, including major ISPs, cloud services, and enterprises. And the company really started off by a mission to democratize internet usage. So we protect a lot of home starters, digital natives, startups, enterprises, public sector organizations across the world.
Now, so I want to ask you about your product and service offerings in detail, because as you just pointed out, you have some product offerings which are free, some are very SME focused, and some plans are obviously geared towards very large enterprises. Give us some insights into your offerings.
Absolutely. So again, I suppose it comes back to the DNA of the company, Brian. Again, we want to help build a better internet and democratize internet. So we do provide a free service, which gives people in less fortunate circumstances the opportunity to have security on their internet usage. But then, as the requirements build up, we go from that free tier to a pay-as-you-go, to a business service, to an enterprise service, and that really scales for the largest unicorns in the region, or the largest banks in the region, or the largest public sector agencies in the region to, again, protect and scale and deliver performance benefits around any sort of internet property usage.
Give us then, you're new to this job. You've been at Cloudflare since the start of the year.
March 1, technically.
March 1? All right.
March 1.
So what does your footprint of business and operations look like in the Asian Pacific region?
Sure. So when I started in March 1, it's been a really fun 9 months, Brian. We were roughly 200 people. We had points of presence in roughly 44 cities, actually 44 cities. Today, we're north of 350 people, and we have points of presence in 82 cities. So as you can see, the growth has been rapid.
Phenomenal.
In 9 months. We have offices in Beijing, in Sydney, in Singapore, and in Tokyo. And we're going to be expanding our footprint, just like we're hiring, across the region, across all parts. So think Greater China, including Taiwan and Hong Kong. Japan we see as a huge market for us, medium to long term. We have really mature engagements across Australia, New Zealand, and we have some unique differentiation points in the New Zealand market in particular, and the Australian market based on our edge infrastructure footprint. And we're super enthused about India. I mean, there's unicorns being built in India almost at a rapid rate, and we've got this really good pedigree of customers growing. As they grow their business, they grow with Cloudflare. So there's a great example like Canberra in Australia, one of the shining light unicorns. And when they were little, they used our free tier, but as their requirements grew and their functionality features requirements grew, as their business grew, then they moved up the stack with Cloudflare, and they're now one of our most important and challenging and engaged customers in the region.
Now, Jonathon, so what's your secret sauce? Why are you better than your competitors? And there's a lot of people in your space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we try not to think about the competition too much, Brian, okay? But there are some key reasons why customers work with Cloudflare. I mean, I came from one of those competitors. I mean, I've spent 5 years at Amazon Web Services, and Cloudflare was really born in the cloud, and we're built organically. So we love to build versus buy. And we really stand apart because of our network, which spans, as I said, north of 250 cities across these 100 countries. And it's very flexible, it's very scalable, and it gets more efficient as we expand. I talk about all those relationships we've got. And we've designed to build our network to be able to grow capacity quickly and inexpensively. And so when we release a point of presence, every Cloudflare service is instantaneously available, which is very different to our competition. And then finally, we'll also provide alternatives to customers who want more options and want to control. And so our edge network is programmable, so people can build on top of that, right? And they can build on top for their internal requirements and also their customer requirements.
You've recently done a survey, a study on cyber threat and zero trust landscape across APAC. Could you give us an overview of the key findings in the region?
Yeah, look, I mean, it was really interesting. Again, for me, coming from definitely like yourself, Brian, sort of enterprise IT pedigree, and this has really been my first foray sort of deep into the cybersecurity space. I was really, I learned a lot, right? So we surveyed north of 1,000 people across the region. And look, I suppose some of the key things that we found that weren't unique, but were actually common, is cyber attacks continue to be on the rise. Flexible work is here to stay. Skills is a massive challenge, right? And they're a scarce resource. And the fact that we need to educate stakeholders around zero trust and the boardroom as well. Like, I've been meeting customers around the region, and more there are requirements at the board level to give updates around the cyber position, some of the cyber attacks, and how companies are actually preparing themselves for that. So again, just to give you some stats that might be sort of top of mind, 86% of organizations are now aware of zero trust. So zero trust is really forgetting about that old castle and moat approach and sort of consolidating that and really having rules and processes for any sort of capability, any sort of resource, no matter where they may be. What else things are sort of exciting? So 54% of organizations APAC experienced more security incidents in 2021. And 83% of those respondents said they have to make changes in their IT security procedures. So there's some sort of headline statistics.
Okay, now, have you seen any sort of interesting insights across different sectors? Because obviously, as you said, you talked quite a lot about unicorns earlier as customers. So they would have different sort of needs compared to the banking sector, banking and fintech, financial sector, which is very transaction oriented.
Yeah, I mean, some of the, obviously there's regulatory requirements for more historical enterprises, the banking sector or the government sector. But I mean, the unicorns, they've got that building DNA, Brian. So they're moving fast, right? And things are rapidly changing. They're developing in-house. So then they have to think about that as well. I mean, we looked into countries as well, which is quite interesting. So, Australia is quite mature. It's 83% of the short respondents said their organisation has adapted zero trust, which is ahead of somewhere like yourself, where you're born out of Malaysia, which is 75%, Singapore was 65%, India was 62%, and Japan was 43%.
Now, that's an interesting insight. Singapore is only 65%.
Yeah, that is.
You would expect them to be much higher given the level of maturity of the IT industry and the overall income level of Singapore.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, Brian. I mean, we are working with Singapore on this at the moment. They're definitely they've got a lot of bodies that are focusing on cybersecurity as a nation. The government is being very front of mind around how they need to protect the nation, as are different enterprises as well, and as are the unicorns that have been built out of that market. Grab's a great example there.
Now, I want to touch on key trends. What are some key upcoming business and technology trends that you're most excited about moving forward?
Well, I think we touched on zero trust, so that will continue to rise. And we expect that to continue to grow in 2022. especially as companies start to understand the tangible benefits, whether it's more secure third-party access or it's a more seamless employee experience, especially with this hybrid way of working. And then that leads me to my next point around more mobile workforces and the end of hybrid work. As soon as we enter year three of living with COVID-19, which again, you and I were talking about, is starting to get a little bit frustrating. Flexible work will remain, right? So with the growing workforce in 2022, and especially the mobile community in Asia Pacific, we expect to see a higher use of employees using their personal mobile devices, and therefore a stronger need for security management across the workforce. And then the other interesting thing is around API usage, which will grow in 2022. So the pandemic has forced the world to move more online, and never more have there been more widespread use of applications. Amazingly, there was 218 billion apps were downloaded in 2020, with consumers spending an average of 4.2 hours on them based on some research we've done. And as a result, it's become more popular during lockdowns, such as vaccine certification or ordering food. And they all rely on APIs. So we see that as something that's going to be much more prevalent moving forward.
I want to zoom in, Jonathon, on the company. You've just announced an acquisition of a company called Zaras. What does this acquisition add to Cloudflare?
Listen, I can't talk too much about that, Brian, at the moment. What I can say is that Cloudflare traditionally, and will always have a building DNA. However, we will look to acquire organizations that can complement our sort of product roadmap and our offerings. And that can be easily consumed in a true cloud-based fashion. So that's sort of what I can talk about today. That building DNA will still remain strong within Cloudflare.
Okay, now in 2022, what's the strategy for Cloudflare as you expand so quickly?
Yeah, look, I mean, what I love about Cloudflare and what I've been super enthused about is the pace of innovation. So again, we'll continue to invest in new product development. Just this year, we've announced more than 100 products and capabilities, so we'll continue to be at such a pace. There's some cool announcements around R2, which is our developer-friendly storage at the edge. We announced email security. In March 2001, we talked around Magic WAN, which is an alternative to legacy MPLS networks. From an Asia Pacific perspective, as I said, we have some key priorities in the Japanese market. We really see Australia and New Zealand as a very mature market that's, in a great way, sort of moving us to sort of bleeding edge engagements. And then I think India is a really great one. So we're building a very specific startup digital native sort of capability. And again, we're having to invest in infrastructure to be able to scale to such organizations that are growing at such pace. I mean, the areas, and just let me circle back on that. I mean, zero trust will continue to be a key space. And the other area we're really enthused around is based on our edge network is our developer capability called Workers, where it allows customers to build on our programmable edge and build for capabilities internally, and then also build on behalf of their customers. So I think that's going to see some further developments as well.
Jonathon, you've been in the tech industry for around 2 decades.
Yep.
What are key, and now in the last couple of years in senior leadership roles, what are some bits of advice that you can share with your peers that you've learned, particularly in managing in the last couple of years, not only at Cloudflare, but also at Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's got some, it's a great company for some sort of mental models and some mechanisms, right, which I will leverage forever. And, they've got some really strong sort of cultural things that are, deeply entrenched in the organization. Look, I think people is becoming more and more important, Brian. I mean, we are getting to a more automated world, right? And, sometimes some leaders would do hope that, automation is going to continue to get more prevalent. But, I think, as we, especially in this war of talent, the scarcity of resources, building a really strong culture that's customer focused, that has that building mentality, that can think long term, so be stubborn with their vision, but flexible with their tactics. I think that's really, really important. I think, a strong partner ecosystem is really, really important as well. So that, you know, they're traditional partners that help you serve your customer base, but also partners that help build on top and complement your offerings. I think is a really, really strong point. And then, you know, in a world today, you've got to sort of be scrappy, right? So think around sort of that minimal viable process and iterating based on customer feedback and acting with speed and thinking not just local, but thinking regional and thinking global all the time. I think it's really, really important.
Jonathon, it's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you very much for taking your time to be on the show.
Thank you, Brian. Look forward to hopefully meeting you in KL very soon. I appreciate the opportunity.
I'm Brian Fernandez, and I've been speaking to Jonathon Dixon, Vice President and General Manager Asia Pacific at Cloudflare, on Biztech's Enterprise Technology Show. This video will be on our various social media platforms, as well as our website, www.biztech.asia. Please like and subscribe to our various platforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.